Hey everyone, this is for A&P1. We'll be talking about nervous tissue today. So when we think about nervous tissue, we got to think about the neurons. And we think of neurons, we know that they are the functional unit of the nervous system. They're highly specialized cells with the ability to communicate via conduction, right? And as a result of these cells being so specialized, they have different presentations and different structures, kind of like features, unlike other cells, that enable them to communicate through this transduction. Going forward a little bit, these are the parts of the neuron that you just have to know, right? So starting off from the top, the axon. This is the nerve fiber itself. Carries the impulse away from the body of the neuron. It also has a hillock, which is where the axon meets the neuron cell body. Secondly, we have the cell body of the neuron itself. It has a nucleus as well as a granular cytoplasm. A lot of the cytoplasm is filled with things like microtubules as well as mitochondria. And we also have dendrites and neurofibrils. Dendrites are neuron processes that are able to receive information, and the neurofibrils are small fibers that support the impulse transmission of the neuron. And we have our reference down here just so we're able to keep track of all this information. And neuron parts continue. This is what we need to know about the neurons. This is the bare basics. So as we see here, we have our axon, which carries the impulse away from the cell body. We have to know that. We have to know that the axon attaches via the cell body via that axon hillock. We have our nucleus here, which is highly granular, and we have that cell body that surrounds the nucleus. One of the things that is also really important, and a kind of an analogy I like to make for neurons, is this idea of trees, right? Trees generally only have one trunk. Think one axon. Trees do have many branches, many dendrites. So most neurons, they're always going to have one axon, and they have the ability to have many dendrites. So we want to keep that in mind when it comes to understanding these types of cells. Secondly, one of the most important cells, and personally my favorite, are the neuroglial cells. So these cells help to nourish, support, and protect the neurons. The glial cells by far outnumber the neurons, and they're found in the central nervous system as well as the peripheral nervous system. But one of the things that we just have to understand about these glia cells is that even though they are defined as, usually and described as the cells of the supporting cast, they're very critical to the functions of the body when it comes to the nervous system. And there's a variety of different types of glial cells. And starting from the top, we have astrocytes. They help balance the extracellular ion concentration and also control the brain's blood-brain barrier and make sure it's very durable. This plays a very big role in making sure that outside substances do not reach the inside of the brain. We also have some different types of defense cells, the microglial cells. These are the phagocytic little eaters of the nervous system that helps to keep everything nice and healthy. And we also have epidermal cells as well as oligodendrocytes. When it comes to epidermal cells, these are ciliated cells that help regulate cerebral spinal fluid. Very important, especially when it comes to things like the arachnoid motor that we talked about in class. When it comes to the oligodendrocytes, they have the ability to produce myelin in the central nervous system. Note that myelin in the central nervous system. Oligodendrocytes are found in the central nervous system. However, there are specialized glial cells in the peripheral nervous system. In contrast, the Schwann cells have the ability to produce myelin in the peripheral nervous system. So Schwann cells are in the peripheral nervous system. Satellite cells focus on the nutrient supply and the maintaining of ion concentration between neural cell bodies. So keeping them healthy and keeping them able to conduction for their impulses. And neuroglial cells overall, we have our epidermal cells right here when it comes to them being in keeping the integrity of that kind of membrane. We have an astrocyte here, which kind of have like a star or almost spider-like appearance. We have our microglial cells down here, which are those big eaters of the cells. And we have oligodendrocytes, specifically in the central nervous system, that help produce that myelin in the central nervous system. But down here, we kind of have that peripheral nervous system emphasis when it comes to the axon. We have that myelin sheath. And between these little myelin sheaths, we have those nodes of Ranvier, which are known for the peripheral nervous system. But when it comes to neurons, like I said, they're highly specialized and they have a variety of classifications. So they can be structural as well as functional classifications. So in terms of their structure, they can be multipolar, bipolar, and unipolar neurons. This is going to make a lot more sense when we actually see a picture of these, but I just want to quickly touch on them. Multipolar, 2 or more dendrites, 1 axon. Bipolar, 1 dendrite. We're seeing a trend here, right? 1 axon. All these are going to have 1 axon. They're going to have differing amounts of processes, however, which are those dendrites. So bipolar neurons, 1 dendrite, 1 axon, 2 processes. Unipolar, single processes that divides into 2 branches, still 1 axon. When it comes to the functional categories of these neurons, we have sensory, which has the ability to conduct impulses. We have interneurons, which relays information between the brain and the spine. We have motor neurons, which they are the effectors of the muscles and the glands of the body. So, picture of classifications, we have a multipolar neuron here, as we see 1 axon, multiple dendrites. Bipolar neuron, 1 axon, multiple dendrites up here. Unipolar neurons are a little bit more interesting. As we see 1 axon, don't get confused when this branches off right here. That's still 1 axon, and we know it's 1 axon because it has a couple of these dendrites up here. And lastly, we have our references, and hopefully this was able to clear some stuff up for you folks, and have a very good evening.